welcome to Yep, a King of the Hill podcast made by and for Twig Boys.
Bureaucratic Twig Boys.
Yeah, bureaucratic Twig Boys. It's too hard to say. See, that's why I skipped it. That's why I skipped the bureaucratic part, because fuck that word.
I should have just trusted you. See,
might as well be. Hey, listen, this is a King of the Hill podcast made by and for bureaucratic entrepreneurial Twig Boys. Whew.
From LA.
Real fucking obstacle course. Linguistically. What are you, sipping wine?
Yeah.
We live different lives. I got my coffee.
Yeah, I've got my wine.
Because I'm starting my day, kind of.
I'm winding it down.
Oh, hey, I'm Rob.
And I'm Ronnie. And I tell you what. Today we're talking about Season 1, Episode 1, Pilot.
Meet the Hills, a sports crazy.
Keep your eye on the ball.
On the what?
Music loving.
Mother of God, it's all toilet sounds.
Engine fixing.
I think you released your brake cable.
No, it didn't.
Down to earth family.
Dale, you giblet head.
Introducing King of the Hill.
Please return the garage door to its factory preset down position.
Premiering January 12th on Fox.
Hey, listen, we might talk about why we're doing this, who we are, and why we would do this. And I could ramble all day about my meaningless life. But I'll just stick to stuff that may be kind of relevant to King of the Hill, which is I'm a Texan.
Yeehaw.
Eventually, I was also a substitute teacher.
Did you win an award?
No.
Oh, man. Well, you will by the time this is over.
So when I was growing up in Texas, I was kind of a soft little television-loving child, and my father was constantly out in the shop. He bought a house out in the boonies. I was born in Houston, but they moved us when I was a toddler out to the sticks. And first thing he does is he's like, I need more space for my cars. So he gets a shop built.
Oh, my God.
And then he spends all his, it's like a 2-car garage, which to me, why not 3, Dad? Like, he doesn't even understand himself and how much he loves to buy cars that he doesn't work on.
Yeah, he's in denial.
Yeah. But he was out in the shop all the time, and I hated being out there because of the air compressor. You ever been around one of them fucking things?
Yeah, my dad had
so
one. Yeah.
Loud.
Grrr.
Hated it. Right? So like I was kind of like the Bobby a little bit in the 90s, the 80s and 90s growing up in Texas. And then now I got a kid, and I did work some blue-collar jobs. I've hammered 5 things, so I can kind of use a hammer.
Yeah.
So I tried to show my kid Felix a little bit about how to fix stuff up. So I've kind of done the handheld thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went even further, right? Like I was like, I like TV and I don't like cars, but I did like sports and like working out and stuff, kind of manly. My kid's not a man at all. He's
your boy.
He's my boy, but he's he's a theater kid, music guy, right? So it's like the lineage of our family is going more and more toward Bobby, and I'm kind of the transitional figure.
Half Hank, half Bobby.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I'm Ronnie. I'm not from Texas. I've been there once for a layover, but I'm not from there.
In Dallas?
I think it was Houston.
Oh.
But most of my knowledge of Texas comes from this wonderful show, King of the Hill. We don't want to get too much into our history with it, but I grew up watching King of the Hill, so this really informed my sense of Texas. But I'm from the Midwest. Grew up in the Chicagoland area. Now I'm in Minnesota. Just like Reverend Stroop, a character that will show up in King of the Hill, their pastor. I split my time working at Minnesota's Mega-Lo-Mart, also known as Target. So I got a little bit of Buckley in me, a little bit of a, hey. And I also split my time doing my other podcast, Dancing is Forbidden, where I have gotten to work with Adult Swim on various things, including providing a voice for Aqua Teen Hunger Force, the show that my podcast is based on. And I always forget that King of the Hill is an Adult Swim show, too. Because for me, it's a Fox show. I always watch it on Fox. But I know that there are a lot of people who come to it from Adult Swim, so hopefully I can shed some light on those kinds of things. And I want to say I'm thrilled to be doing this podcast with you, Rob, because you're my favorite podcaster. You made my favorite podcast. And this is really a selfish way for me to get more episodes out of you, because you were in retirement, you were done, and I said, no, sir.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. You know, you'll say you like my podcasting, and I think, well, I've heard my podcasting. I don't know what's wrong with you. I don't know.
You're like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this with this guy. He thinks I'm so good.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it too. I mean, you know, if people care here on episode 1, we know each other because of podcasting about cartoons.
Right.
You know, like on that old show, which I've now taken down off the internet and everything, but my co-host and I talked about an episode of Aqua Teen, and then you found that, and you know, we ended up just interacting online, and then now we have each other's phone numbers, huh? Things have evolved.
How's that? Second base.
We're well, real quick, you know, so I watched King of the Hill. For a while. Fox Sunday was my favorite lineup.
Yeah, me too.
A little before this, right? But like if it's Simpsons in Living Color, Get a Life, the George Carlin Show. Love The Simpsons. And so when they started advertising the show, for one thing, by the way, I was like, but that's Anderson from Beavis and Butthead.
Tom Anderson, yeah.
Hey, wait a minute. You two look kind of familiar. Ain't you them kids that have been whacking off in my tool shed?
So I would have been thinking of that. And a little confused, and also confused, like, is Arlen a real town? I'm just like a little confused by new things as a 15-year-old.
Confused by new and old things.
Yeah, that's right.
just confused by all things.
But I don't think it took much for me to get into it. I watched it every episode, you know, for however long, a number of years. I don't know if I've seen the whole thing, and my memory's kind of shit anyway. So I'm kind of going into this rewatch, not totally fresh, obviously, but I don't remember a lot of it. And I feel like I might, at this point in my life, have kind of a different orientation toward television, somewhat. I never cared that much about characters or storytelling. And as we gear up to watch King of the Hill and talk about it, I find myself especially interested in getting to spend time with a Dale Gribble or a Bill, and people who, I don't know, I don't know what I would have just been like laughing at jokes or whatever in the past. And now I'm like, no, I'm curious how they create these characters and tell stories about them.
Yeah, I mean, not to get too ahead of ourselves, but of course you have, this isn't really a complete delineation between them, but Mike Judge coming from Beavis and Butthead and really nailing down on just like the jokey side of things, and then Greg Daniels really like the more character side. Not to say Greg Daniels isn't hilarious too, but yeah, I mean, for me, I too, you know, loved the Fox lineup, but I'm a bit younger than you are, Rob. So for me, King of the Hill was like always around. It was just always a thing in my life. So for me, the Fox lineup like really is like the animation block of like Simpsons and King of the Hill, later Family Guy, like all this kind of stuff. And King of the Hill always standing out to me as a very special show because it was very funny. It had continuity in a way that you and I both love that other shows don't really do. I mean, they're not perfect with it, but it does have a lot more continuity with other shows. But you just have, it's just grounded. It's like very realistic. And occasionally it goes off the rails, especially towards like as it goes on, which of course it had, like, right, they have to at certain points. But it just always to me was the special show. I remember in high school hearing people say like, oh, King of the Hill, that show's not funny.
Yeah.
And I'm like, obviously that's subjective, like humor in general is subjective, but it always bugged me when people would say like, oh, it's not funny at all. I'm like, well, maybe you don't like it, but I think there's a lot of funny aspects of it. But having said that, as an adult, because growing up I've seen so many of these, like the first half of the show, maybe more, let's say the first 8 seasons, ad nauseum. Like I'd seen all these episodes many times because it was always on. And then I rewatched it, let's say about 5-6 years ago, completely with my wife. She had never seen it. She fell in love with it.
Wow. That seems fun to share it with someone.
Yeah, it was. Because I didn't know, you know, she's someone who really wasn't that crazy about cartoons and stuff, but she really latched onto it. And so I saw the whole series then, and I appreciate it so much more as an adult now than when I was a kid. There's just like so much more there that I guess I understand why younger folks might not like it as much because it's not as obvious in its humor a lot of the times.
It doesn't like cut away to a joke about Margot Kidder going crazy. And
yeah, there's not as many flashback jokes.
Give me some Margot Kidder jokes if you want me to laugh, Mike Judge.
Pick it up, Mike Judge.
I like Family Guy, for the record.
Yeah, I do too. That's the thing. Yeah, it's like an easy thing to pick on, but I love Family Guy. I think it's
I really admire a lot of what Seth MacFarlane's done and so forth, for the record.
So you say that, you were watching Beavis and Butthead first, and then you experienced King of the Hill. But for me, it was backwards, because I knew of King of the Hill really before Beavis and Butthead. Because by the time I was old enough to flip to my own TV channel, they really weren't showing Beavis and Butthead on MTV anymore. So I only saw it in bits and pieces until years later I was able to download it off the internet and watch through it. Which, by the way, when I watched that, because I love 90s music, I'm like, all right, I'm going to see all these great 90s things. Most of that music sucked when they're watching it. I'm like, this is dog shit. So I'm always like, if you think music was unanimously better back in the old days, like, go watch an episode of Beavis and Butthead, just any episode, because most of the time the music videos they're watching are horrible.
I assume that they went for, at least in some cases, more obscure stuff, right? Like, they would watch Gwar videos. Like, nobody's watching Gwar.
Yeah.
Other than Beavis and Butthead. Now, what character is that? I have that in my head, and I don't know. Beavis and Butthead. Is that somebody?
Was that maybe the principal?
I don't.
Beavis.
Well, see, so he sounds, anyway, he sounds so shaky.
Yeah.
I went looking. I'm like, who is this character that in my head? Beavis and Butthead. And so was it that like coach that
oh yeah, that's it. I think
guy?
That's it. I think it's the coach. You're right.
At any rate,
yeah.
Beavis and Butthead are the only ones watching Gwar.
Well, I'll let you know, Rob. I'm seeing Gwar in May, so
I don't know if you're joking.
No, I'm serious. So I'll maybe I'll report in when I've seen it in a Beavis and Butthead style.
Yeah, Gwar. Cool. Yeah, all right. Yeah. Whoa, Gwar has horns now?
Yeah, they taught the sex slaves to play horns. It's like Balzac told him, throwing blood and urine in the audience isn't enough. You guys need to learn to play something.
Yeah, really.
Well, hey, that brings us to our topic at hand, jump into where it all began. The pilot episode.
That's right.
In this episode, when a baseball hits Bobby in the eye during a Little League game, the resulting shiner causes a social worker to suspect Hank of child abuse. So I want to mention, of course, we had Mike Judge, who just got off. Well, he was still doing Beavis and Butthead, I think. He was wrapping it up while this was starting up. They sold the idea, I guess, and they brought in Greg Daniels to rewrite the pilot script. And Greg Daniels kind of went above and beyond. Like, he invented new characters like Luanne and Cotton, and he reworked a bunch of characters. For example, it's because of Greg Daniels that Dale Gribble was a conspiracy theorist. And just the brilliant joke of Dale's wife, Nancy, having an affair with their healer, or her healer, John Redcorn, and then their son Joseph, who's obviously the result of their affair. So Dale being this conspiracy theorist, but he can't see like what's obviously right in front of him with his own life. So Greg Daniels really just did so much that Mike Judge was like, you know what, I'm going to give you a co-creator credit on this, which was really nice to do, because that nets Greg Daniels a lot more money than just a additional like characters or whatever by. I did want to touch on some of the alternate names for the show, because my understanding is that King of the Hill was like a placeholder name, and they're like, all right, we'll figure out something later. And some of the ideas they had were Hank and Peggy Hill, Mr. and Mrs. Hill, Boy Howdy, Texas Toast. Like, some of these are just bad. I, Hank, the Hank Hill Radio Hour. I have to wonder if some of these are jokes, because they're so ridiculous. Texas USA, Propane Man. My favorite is I'm gonna kick your ass.
I'm gonna kick your ass. I kind of like Hank Hill, Texan American.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, King of the Hill is such a strange name for this show, right? Like, to me, it always did kind of stand out as being kind of an odd name, but we just know it unanimously as King of the Hill. You don't think about it. Like the band Korn. Like, that's a ridiculous name, but we just know they're called Korn, so it's like, yeah, they're Korn. Like, what else do you think about it? But like, I wouldn't think to name my band something like that. Or
wait a minute, why the fuck are they called Korn?
I think their point was literally that it didn't matter what you're called, that you can call yourself anything, and then whatever. This is, I guess, applies here. Their ideology, my understanding, is that like the music defined what the name meant. And here with King of the Hill, the show is good. So it's like, yeah, I don't think anything about the name. That's just what it's called.
Meanwhile, I think endlessly, obsess over like, oh, if I'm gonna make something, what's it gonna be called? And if I can't think of a name, I give up on the idea.
You have this amazing like piece ready to go. You're like, I can't title it. Trash.
And then if I have a title I like, I'm like, I gotta figure out I gotta make something that I can call that. Like I'm all obsessed with titles.
Yeah, you're like, the content has to
pointlessly.
be amazing because I love this title. And then you just never finish it. Sure. To the pilot episode, I had seen this one a bunch. I never liked this episode for a long time. Maybe it's because the characters aren't completely developed yet. I mean, it is a pilot after all, but when I'm 9-10 years old watching it, I'm not really keeping that in mind. I'm just like, yeah, this one isn't as fun as the other ones.
Watching it, I don't know what I thought of it before, but watching it this time, I was pretty happy. This episode does a lot of what I am looking for going in to the series.
Did you watch this? So you watched this when it aired, I presume.
I must have. I mean, I remember the promos airing. I don't remember a lot of new shows where I was aware of it ahead of time, anticipating it. I did feel that way about King of the Hill. So I must have watched it on January 12th, 1997.
I do want to say, we'll get into it, but I do like this episode a lot more now. But Rob, what do you say that we check the Arlen bystander and see what the heck was going on back then? Hey, it's Ronnie here to say thank you so much for checking out our dang old podcast. I wanted to let you know that you're actually listening to the free version of today's episode. Rob and I are pump jockeys, and yes, we do work for tips.
My boy's a pump jockey. Works for tips.
Dad, I do not work for tips.
Pump jockey.
Dad, I am not a pump
Works for
jockey.
tips.
For $5 a month, you get the full version of the podcast, which includes almost 40 minutes of Rob and I talking about the pop culture of the week that Pilot debuted, all the way back in January of 1997. We're talking the top rock songs of the time, the release of a devilish video game, and we're touching on some of the top films like Jerry Maguire. Here's a little clip of that.
Right, I'm gonna go to a meeting right now, and you know who I'm gonna talk about? You. Because I kill for you. I'm an animal for you.
I'd kill for you. I'm an animal for you.
I'm an animal for you.
Boy, that's so... You ever encounter that kind of person who does things?
I've seen a few of them.
Like they have ambition and they're getting after it, you know?
Yeah.
They're climbing that corporate ladder. They're playing the game. They're hustling. Boy, do I not live like that.
That's the opposite. I'm like the opposite of Jerry Maguire.
I might be the opposite of Jerry Maguire. I'm probably Reese... What's her fucking name? Not Reese Witherspoon. Who's the lady in that one?
Oh, gosh, I don't
Oh,
remember.
my gosh.
I was watching it 2 hours ago. You think I remember? Hell no. But you know what I do remember? There is somebody in Jerry Maguire who we might be interested in.
Oh, is that right?
My name is Steve Remo.
Yeah.
I play for Chicago. Oh, this lady here's my wife.
Hi, baby.
And this is my boy.
Mr. Remo there, played by Toby Huss.
Oh, really?
Yes, voice of Cotton in this episode of King of the Hill. And he has a son, too.
Fuck you.
That's little Drake Bell. He's probably about
really?
8 years. Yeah, I saw him, like, I see this little kid. I'm like, is that Drake Bell? And sure enough, it is.
Oh, my goodness.
Fuck you.
Fuck you.
Head on over to yeppodcast.com or check the description to this podcast episode to sign up. In the meantime, let's go talk about pilots.
All right, well, on into the pilot of King of the Hill. We open with this bird's eye kind of pan across Arlen, Texas. We see people down there mowing and watering their lawns, and somebody's cutting down tree limbs. And then we lock in on a mosquito that buzzes all the way down there. I just like how the show opens, right? It lands on Hank's neck and then he smacks it. That's how King of the Hill starts.
It's very artistic.
Yeah.
And it's just people living their lives. Like we see there's no high stakes. Nothing crazy is happening. It's just a reflection of life.
Yeah, that's right. And then we see the guys, Hank, Dale, Bill, Boomhauer, standing there looking into the open hood of Hank's truck. And how does the show kick off these characters?
They always mix it up. Usually they never all say yep. There's always like some sort of variation just to keep it going. And I know that's based on observations that Mike Judge has had. He really draws from his life and a lot of his work. And like when he was living in Texas or whatever, just seeing guys standing around looking at trucks saying yep.
That's right. And I guess that's why it feels grounded, right? It's truly growing out of the real world as Judge and others observed it. They're drinking Alamo beer. It's interesting how many things, and I don't want to get, for me, too caught up in like what happens in the show later because I don't remember it well enough. But obviously there's like these iconic things. Right. Like the yep. You'd almost expect them to be in the alley instead of in the driveway looking at the truck. But Alamo beer, it's here right away. Right. There's a lot of stuff that goes into building the world that's present episode 1.
Right. They had a lot established. And even here, the voices sound the slightest bit different than they will. The characters. I do want to say, like, King of the Hill does like Flanderize their characters in a way, but in a way that I like. I actually don't mind it in King of the Hill when they make Dale even wackier as the show goes on, or they make Bobby even more of like this big showbiz kind of guy. To me, they never really went too far with it. Maybe I'll change my mind as we go on.
Yeah. I like that Dale says, what the problem is? It's a Ford. Ford stands for fix it again, Tony.
That's a Fiat, Dale.
And I wonder if as a kid, I'm like, I've heard of Fiat because I had that car guy dad. I'm like, I know Fiat. I get that joke. I'm right on top of this.
Hey, Dad, they're talking about Fiats in here. Get over here. This new show's on.
Dale brings up the Seinfeld show, and we got a clip of that. It's fun to hear these guys.
Yeah. It's not like, those Northerners or nothing. Like, they're like, oh man, those New York boys are so funny. It's not like there's no disdain really here.
Right. Yeah. It is nice to see them just enjoy. Right. Like America resisted Seinfeld, or at least there was a network executive who was like, listen, it's a little Jewish. That's not going to work. That's not going to fly in America. So there's some concern, right, that middle America, flyover states, those kinds of folks aren't interested in the coastal elite television. Seinfeld's funny. Yeah. These guys like funny. They enjoy the New York boys.
It does set a tone for the show that, specifically with Hank, I've found he is a very kind of open-minded character. He's willing to like embrace all different and we do see that they are ignorant in a lot of ways, but they are willing to change their minds on things. So off the bat, we're seeing that these Texans, they like this New York centric show. So
it's like it would have been easy. And I wonder how much I was worried about this at the time, thinking like, well, how are they going to represent Texas? I don't know what language I would have used as a 15-year-old. But like some concern that if Texans are going to be in a comedy, are they going to like make fun of Texas, Right. Or, have them be like super close-minded. But no, like you're saying, I like that the first thing we get is appreciation and positivity about something. That's nice.
Right. Well, I want to say, like, in Judge's initial draft, the characters were intended to be more just like stupid, snaggle-toothed hillbillies, and Greg Daniels cleaned a lot of that up and was like, no, you have to make characters that people care about, and people will enjoy seeing over and over again, as opposed to Beavis and Butthead, but on a bigger scale with even more character. Beavis and Butthead works as it is, but a show with a bunch of those characters would just get old after a while.
Yeah, we can punch down on some dumbass teenagers.
Right.
But if we're going to
make fun of a group of people.
Yeah, like let's get these people to be human a little bit.
Exactly, yeah. Worth mentioning that Greg Daniels did write a Seinfeld episode in 1992, The Parking Space. I don't recall that one.
I assume it's the one where they're wandering around a parking garage trying to find their car because they can't remember where they parked it.
That has to be it.
If we just want to follow the truck storyline in this pilot episode, the next scene we get there is Hank sitting on his tractor. So we're still not out in the alley. I'm realizing now we don't get out in the alley in episode 1.
Yeah, I guess they didn't establish that yet, really.
So he's hanging out. He's sitting on his tractor, and Dale is going off about the problem with the truck is the pollution controls.
Yeah.
I don't know what all's in this clip here, but he says he heard it on talk radio.
But I love that because they're establishing that Dale is this crazy guy, and then Hank is this reasonable guy. Like, dude, shut up about this conspiracy crap. So we immediately get more of a sense of these characters.
Oh, man, I definitely don't want to get into this, but what that made me think of is that if you did this exactly the same way now, people would be like, that's woke. Like, that Hank, is not a conspiracy theorist and not denying global warming and stuff. Like, that would be somehow bad in some people's views.
I was watching this episode with my friends last night, and that's what struck us was like, at the time in 97, Dale was this crackpot character you could laugh at as like, oh, look at this conspiracy guy. Now you're seeing more Dales in the world by the day, really. So it just goes to show that stark change from then till now. But you're right. If they explicitly had Hank say this in 2025, you would get backlash to it online. Yeah. I do want to say I did grow up hearing talk conspiracy radio. My dad always had it on. Yeah. I always enjoyed listening to it, but I knew it was bullshit. I knew none of it was real, but the way that they presented it was so entertaining that I wouldn't mind hearing it, even though if it was obviously ridiculous. Like guys like Michael Savage, I don't know if you know who that is, but
I know the name.
And it's when I remember one time my mom pointed out because supposedly he got banned from being in England or something because of his views or whatever. And then like a month later, he's like, buy my new book, Banned from England or something. And she's like, yeah, like anytime anything happens, he has like a new book. And I quickly learned that like there was always something they were selling. There was always like some kind of thing like that, which I guess prepared me for 2025 now.
I'm glad someone's prepared.
I have the tools. But yeah, it's just, I definitely did grow up listening to similar things as Dale.
I never heard the conspiracy stuff. My dad was a Limbaugh guy and would listen to Limbaugh and buy his books and Trump's books. But one thing that's happened, right, is that fringy talk radio thing just went mainstream and kind of infected the culture at large.
Right.
Well, eventually Dale takes it upon himself to fix Hank's truck. He like climbs up on the bumper.
Hank's gone at this point.
Yeah, Hank's not around, and Dale's like secretly gonna help him. What does he say? I'm gonna help him.
I'm gonna help get him this alternator off.
Yeah.
Dale, I think you released the brake cable. Dale.
No, I didn't. I guess I better get going. I got some edging to do.
So the truck is rolling and it crashes into the garage door and then everyone scatters. I just love that. No, I didn't.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Like he's so confident in it and then he just runs away as soon as it happens. Yeah, that whole truck storyline ends up with Luanne fixing it. She figured out what was wrong with the truck. And I always loved this side of Luanne, that she's a great mechanic, that she's like very mechanically inclined, at least particularly with automobiles. But they never really develop it. They do hint at it. They do bring it up from time to time. But you would think the natural evolution there is she becomes a mechanic, maybe opens her own shop. But that never happens. They just have her keep trying beauty school or whatever. I don't understand why nobody pushes her into that, because she's smarter than Hank, apparently, when it comes to this kind of thing.
Well, how about that? Part of me is like, why don't they know? Why can't they fix the truck? Are we meant to think like, yeah, they like looking at it, but they're not actually talented or knowledgeable mechanics,
Yeah.
I'm guessing that over the years, Hank is like documented to be shown to be a capable.
But at this point, maybe that wasn't the intention,
maybe not. Like a bunch of inept guys.
Right.
Like, are they kind of like posturing as real men as they look at the engine but talk about TV like I would have been?
Yeah, talking about Seinfeld while they're staring into the... Yeah, exactly. That's interesting.
I wonder if you're like, all right, listen, do y'all want to have Luanne move away from beauty school and get into like, mechanical work, working on engines and stuff? And I just wonder, that creates a dynamic between her and Hank that then you kind of have the triangle of Hank, Bobby, Luanne. I wonder if you keep Luanne weird to Hank and keep Hank like uncomfortable with Luanne. If they bonded over her doing the kinds of things he liked to do, I mean, you could definitely do stories with that.
Right.
But one thing that crosses my mind is just, what does that do? Like, does it put Bobby then in competition with Luanne for Hank's attention? And I mean, maybe you want to do that, but I also wonder if, is that worth avoiding for some reason? Like they don't want to, you know.
That you're probably right. You know, that is something, if we ever had the opportunity to ask, it's something I wonder, like if they ever thought of going in that direction. But you're right, because that does ruin the dynamic, because Luanne was brought in by Greg Daniels. He created the character as, I don't want to say like this kind of, not a sexual tension, surely not, but like Hank has this uncomfortability around sex.
Yeah.
And Luanne being this very beautiful girl, this young girl who lives there, you know, we see like in this episode, I don't know if we're past that point or if it's coming up, but like he opens bathroom door or something. I think she's there like in her towel or something. He freaks out about it.
Lock the door.
Yeah. I got a minor son around here, or whatever. So she's kind of there to provide that comedy of Hank in those regards. And you're right. If they make her more of an equal to Hank, then it completely changes that dynamic and it limits what they can kind of do with her. Yeah, that's,
You know, it like bonds them too much, maybe.
Right. But yeah, speaking of Luanne, we go to meet the rest of the family.
The story there is that this is it's Peggy's sister's daughter. Am I right about the family tree here?
I think it's Peggy's brother's daughter.
Is it?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. At any rate, it's even like another distance between, like a little extra distance between Hank, right? Like this is a young woman that's going to be awkward for him. And it's like Peggy's family. I do like that he is, at least to her, supportive. You know, the deal is that her parents got in a fight or something, so she's staying with the Hills. And then later in the episode, she comes to him really crying that her parents had a knockdown, drag-out fight. The trailer toppled over. The cops were called. I think mom's in jail. And Hank's like, well, you can stay with us. You know, like right away but then as soon as she leaves, he says to Peggy,
she has got to go.
so it's a little bit of like Hank has pretty good values, seems to me. He wants to do right by people, but also he's like, damn, can we maybe not have this girl living with us?
Yeah, we should say Luanne 21. I'm sure anybody listening, I'm sure knows who these characters are.
No.
But yeah, so she is an adult. She's 21 years old.
I wasn't sure how old she was.
At least that's what it says on her wiki page here. Okay. But so that's the thing is, like, you know, she needs a place to stay. She is an adult, but you know, she is in beauty school, or maybe she's about to join, whatever. So she's a young adult, but she doesn't have her own stability yet. So it's like, you know, it'd be a different situation if she was a minor. Obviously, then it'd be a lot more, well, she's not 18, you know, we have to take care of her. But it's like, well, they don't have to, but it's the right thing to do.
And then, you know, the other characters we do meet Bobby, the son. The way we meet him, I guess, is worth noting. I'm not mistaken, right? The first thing is that he's listening to something, and Hank's like, what you listening to?
Yeah.
And it turns out it's like the Jerky Boys type thing. And then we heard this in that trailer commercial we played earlier, but Hank's reaction.
Mother of God, it's all toilet sounds.
Well, it's interesting because he comes up to Bobby, who's in his room listening to this, and Bobby's like, oh, you know, you're not going to like it. And he's like, well, I love this new music or something. So he shows to be this open-minded kind of guy, but then when it's literally fart noises, his face gets red too. He gets like really shocked and embarrassed by this.
Yeah, it is funny to watch Hank like no, I can do it. I can live in this world. And then he encounters somebody who's like, oh.
He very quickly turns around and wants out. Yeah.
He leaves Bobby's room and we get our first.
That boy ain't right.
One of the many amazing catchphrases.
Love it.
From this show.
All right, so Bobby's got a baseball game. He's no good at it. Hank's trying to coach him up. Like, you got to swing. And then Bobby does manage to get on first, but he's looking at Hank, which is sweet, right?
Yeah, he's like, look at Dad, I did it. Well, the way it happens is he's holding the bat and the ball just like by chance hits off of the bat. So then he runs with the bat to first place. He doesn't even drop the bat.
But I like Hank being like, "Don't look at me, boy.
Yeah,
watch the ball."
Yeah.
Which, boy, what's scarier other than the air compressor in my dad's shop? What's scarier than a baseball? That thing is hard and moves fast.
Yeah.
Like I always am uncomfortable around baseball games.
Do some damage.
You know, like some people grow up playing America's pastime and they love it and they can catch it and I'm like, that fucking thing's gonna hit me.
Yeah. You're constantly on lookout. Like you're not even playing and you're like fucking on edge and stressed out.
It's a nice environment to go to a game. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not talking big stadium, major league type stuff, but like here locally, a little college team, hang out on a nice day. It's really pretty nice, pretty pleasant, except the whole time I'm like on edge, like, oh God, any foul ball. I get a new dent in my head.
My days could be over.
And Bobby takes a line drive to the eye socket.
Yep.
And has a black eye. And they're heading home, and Hank says, "I need a tap and die," which I have no idea what that is, but it's apparently how you like create the threads for screwing and bolting type situations. But so he goes by Mega-Lo-Mart. No, wait, did I skip the part you need for the Target story?
Oh, yeah. When they're going to the game, Hank's trying to talk Bobby up. He's like, you better give 110%. And they just start going back and forth about, because Peggy kind of thinks that that's like ridiculous that he's saying that. And it just reminded me of one time I'm at work and our manager, it's one of the guys' like first day. She comes up to us and she's like, you know, you all need to be giving like at least 120%. And I'm sitting there just rolling my eyes like, oh my God.
Can you demonstrate that for us? What does it look like? 120%. Can you just show me real quick?
Yeah, like I don't understand how exactly that's supposed to work. And to me, it was funny because the person who hired me was a different guy. It was a dude. And when he hired me, he's like, yeah, as long as you show up and give like 70%, I'm happy. And now here I am with this new manager in a different department, and she's yelling at us to give 120% at least.
Damn.
And I'm like...
You're like, do we get paid 120%?
Yeah, do I get do I get a bump in pay raise for that, or how does that work? Yeah, it's just such a ridiculous notion, especially, you know, anybody who knows how percentages work.
Yeah. I do like that scene. I didn't mean to skip it because we do see the feistiness of Peggy, right?
Yeah, she pushes back against this. She's like pointing out the ridiculousness of it.
Yeah, Hank's talking, gotta give 100%. And then she like fucks with him, you know, kind of pushing his buttons.
Yeah, it is an acknowledgement of how ridiculous it is. It's a nudge, but it's not a straight out like, you know, shut up, Hank, or anything like that.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really catch on, I think, that she's doing it.
He just gets flustered, but I don't think he's aware that she's doing it on purpose to needle him a little bit.
Yeah, because I don't know if it's Peggy or Bobby's like, what about 112%? And he's like, yeah. Then the other person's like, what about 113% or whatever? Like, yeah, it's just ridiculous. But at this point, Bobby gave, let's say, 114%. He did get on first base, but he wasn't watching the ball. Now he's got a shiner, and they go to Mega-Lo-Mart. And we encounter a character. I don't think we hear his name here. I don't know that we even know who this is yet, but it is Buckley, who Luanne does go on to date or is dating now. I'm not entirely sure on the timeline of it.
I guess we'll see, right?
But he's a complete idiot. So Hank's asking him where the hardware department is.
Which I was wondering, is it just unusual for him to go to Mega-Lo-Mart for...
That's
hardware
my
supplies,
impression.
right?
It seems like he's just going because it's on the way, so he just wants to stop it and grab it. Later on, the Mega-Lo-Mart itself does come into play a lot throughout the show, but eventually they come to embrace the Mega-Lo-Mart, but that's not the case here because it is kind of that small town struggle against the big box store that did just move in.
Growing up, going to Walmart was about all there was to do, right? Watch TV, walk around the neighborhood, or tag along with mom when she goes to Walmart, and then just roam around, knowing like where she would go. Like I had Walmart mapped out as a kid. Like, it's not like it's complicated, but I knew where everything was, right? because you would just roam around. And that I went to a job interview at Walmart as a teenager. I applied to the one that was in my hometown. I had moved a little further away, and there were Walmarts closer to my new home. But I wanted to work at the one I grew up going to, you know?
Yeah. It's your domain.
Like where I bought my copy of In Utero that said "Waif Me" on the back.
The Walmart special cut.
Didn't even know I'm just buying edited CDs.
Yeah. Oh my God,
Walmart.
tragic.
Ugh. So that's the one I applied to, and they took me to the back. Oh, I'd never been in the back before. I go to the back with the manager, and they're like, "So, you know, why'd you apply to work with us?" And I told them the truth. I heard that was good to do, telling the truth.
Yeah, well.
I said, well, I grew up coming here. It was like my favorite place to come be. And so I just thought I would, you know, if I'm going to have a job, I'd like to work here.
Mm-hmm.
They never called me back.
You know what? That's funny. I have like the same story with the Target near the town I grew up in.
Yeah?
Yeah, so, you know, got to go to the back, see, I'm like, oh my God, this is what this part of the store looks like. And the interview's going well. At the time, I was in school, and my plan was to make a video game with a friend, and that's a story I can get into in another episode. So I had these other things I was doing, and I'm doing the interview, and, you know, they're like, you know, so why you apply here? And I was like, you know, well, if I had to work anywhere, I would want to work here. Which I think bombed it for me, because I never got a call back. But joke's on them, because all these years later, now I get to work at Target. So
now you fucking run that place.
I hate this place.
That's me at work now.
Excuse me, where's the...
Something like that a little bit. What if I wanted a hammer? Where would I go?
I think he's like, hammer.
Hammer. And we see these women are nearby, kind of eavesdropping. Yeah. They see Bobby's black eye. They see Hank getting pretty pissed off with this guy. He eventually screams,
"You're fired!"
Gets all Trumpy about it.
Yeah, really. And then we see like some gossip, some town gossip as the story spreads. Did you hear about Hank Hill? He, you know, beat the shit out of somebody at Mega-Lo-Mart. You know, like it takes on a life of its own.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find this so weird in this episode, because I don't feel like any other episode of the show is like this, because we have all these background characters that we really never see again.
Yeah.
I guess a little sexist, because it is all women who are talking to each other all the time. Yeah, they're spreading this gossip, and it's just gossipy in a way that I don't know that we ever see from the show again.
Not in this way, right? Where it's like montage style, nobody characters.
Right.
You know, that's kind of a cliche about small town life. I wonder if that's why they dropped it or whatever. It's like, it's like everybody talks about small town, everybody knows everybody, gossip. That wasn't my experience at all. It turns out when you just watch TV,
you just
nobody's
kept to
talking
yourself.
about anybody.
Yeah.
Like you're just living these basically isolated lives. Now, we weren't churchgoers.
Same, yeah.
We didn't have family also in the small town, so we didn't have like roots and connections and stuff. So I'm sure it was going on. In fact, when I would go for a little bit there, I was visiting my cousin out in East Texas, a little ways away from Tyler, Texas. It was more like that. It was more like of course I was hanging out with high school kids, but it was, you just got this, everybody's family knew everybody. Like my aunt knew all my cousins' friends, parents, all that kind of stuff. So it was more of that small town feel that gets shown sometimes in media.
Right. I guess to the story elements here, this only works with these like tertiary characters that we really never see again. Because let's say it was Min here who saw that. She wouldn't say, like, I don't think she would spread those rumors about Hank, for example. Like, the CPS stuff only comes into play because these rumors get out of hand.
Yeah.
And I just don't see the people, like the core supporting cast, spreading, like if they were there firsthand, I don't see them spreading that kind of rumor. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. I wonder if Min would.
Maybe Min would. Maybe she's a bad example, but
yeah. Well, word does get all the way to Child Protective Services, CPS, and this dude takes the case. I guess his name is Anthony Page. I just found that on the internet. He takes the call about Hank Hill, the abusive father, apparently. And he's like, okay, I'm on the case. And then he gets up from his desk. He takes off he's got like some wrist braces on.
Braces, yeah.
Like for carpal tunnel probably.
Yeah.
And then he picks up what the fuck do you call it?
Clipboard.
A clipboard. Picks up a clipboard and he goes,
Yeah, I said that's me when I saw that, and everyone like, little twig boy. He's trying to pick up his clipboard. It's a lot. I do want to say Anthony Page, voiced by David Herman, who does a ton of supporting characters and stuff in the show, and who I know and love as Michael Bolton in Office Space.
That's right. Not the one. If people aren't familiar with Office Space, not the no talent ass clown.
Yeah.
Not that Michael Bolton, who I loved.
Hey, he's not so bad. Why can't there just be two Michael Boltons? Why can't they get along?
When I was watching all those love songs on VH1 and pining after girls who didn't know I existed on this earth, Michael Bolton was some of the better stuff, man. I love that stuff.
Sure, yeah.
All right, well, dude's coming around to the Hill residence to check in on this report of some abusive parenting. And meanwhile, Bobby's throwing his baseball off the walls inside the house.
It's kind of strange.
Yeah. I mean, I would do it. As a kid, I would have done that. Yeah, until somebody was like, don't do that.
Sure.
Right? Like you're marking up the wall.
I mean, Peggy sees him doing it and she doesn't stop him ever.
That's
kind of weird to me, yeah.
That's weird to me for sure. Boy, I remember I wasn't a baseball kid, but I did have a baseball. I had a bat. Here's something, I'm pretty sure this is true. I would throw the baseball up on the roof and then like spot where it was going to come down and treat that like a pitch and fucking swing on it.
Oh. So
I broke the window.
For real?
I broke a bathroom window.
I was going to ask. I was like, what happened?
Well, I shattered some glass, and it was even I don't know what you call it, but like it was a bathroom window, so it was like it wasn't frost. It was like it's textured, like
yeah, I know. Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about, like kind
of
an effect where you can't see through it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like extra expensive to replace. It wasn't just a regular old window pane. Sure. It was this other kind of glass that I imagine was more expensive. It stayed broken for a while.
So that was your Bobby moment. In that moment, you were a Bobby.
It is thinking about, like the dynamic between me and my dad, where he was all into the grease monkey engine car stuff, and I just couldn't be around it. He got me a bike, and the way I said thank you was I'd been watching the X-Men cartoon. And I liked Gambit. Yeah. So I did a Cajun accent. He got me a bike. So he's like, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do Hank Hill for my dad. He didn't sound like him at all. Like, I'm going to do something for my boy. I'm going to get him a bicycle. And then this weird fucking kid of his goes, life don't get much better than this.
What the fuck?
And so my dad... Like, I'm just being like, this is great.
Yeah.
Life doesn't get, because that was like a soundbite. I think there was a commercial running at the time with Gambit saying that or something. So that's what popped in my head. Mm-hmm. And that's what I said to him. And I can just imagine my dad scowling at me like, what the fuck?
Like,
this is why I don't talk to you. I don't understand anything you say.
Oh, my God.
Breaking my windows with your baseball?
Talking in a newfound Cajun accent? What's going on with this guy?
All right, well, Bobby's bouncing the ball off the walls.
Yeah.
And that's irritating Hank as he works on his truck outside. And he's struggling with his truck out there to the point where Dale's holding the light, but he gets distracted by something and he's not doing a good job. The wrench slips. Hank busts his knuckles, loses his balance, falls kind of into the engine compartment there. The hood comes down on him.
Yeah.
So he comes into the house, and now the CPS guy is there, and Hank comes into the house pretty pissed.
Yeah, he
just went through it a little bit. So he comes in, he's irritated. Stop throwing the ball. He finds out I'd skipped it, but Bobby at one point hit Peggy on accident. Hit Peggy with the ball.
Right, yeah, when he was throwing the ball. Yeah, so now Peggy has some sort of bruise on her face.
Yeah, which matters, right? CPS sees further evidence, perhaps, that he interprets as some kind of physical abuse going on. Mm-hmm. But then also it gives Hank something else to react to, Somehow he finds out that Bobby hit her. You hit your mom with the ball?
Yeah.
So he's just yelling. And so now CPS guy sees Black Eye, sees the bruise on Peggy, sees the man of the house, Hank, raging, and the story kicks off from there. He sits them down to talk to him so much.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. I have not begun to project my anger onto you.
One thing going on, because, part of me is kind of like, well, okay, let's track it. This guy wants to protect the child. He thinks the child's in danger. There's something to it that, maybe you should not be shouting at your kid all the time. And I'm concerned that if you're this angry and this is how you conduct yourself, that maybe this environment is not healthy for the child, right? Mm-hmm. So all that could be valid. I mean, one thing that goes on is, I don't know, I guess we could give him credit for feeling like what he's seeing is evidence of something bad.
That's my issue with this episode, is that we're framed to see Anthony as a bad guy because we know the truth. We know what happened. But from his perspective, if you cut this whole episode from his perspective, 100% any sane person would be trying to get this boy out of this home.
Yeah, well, other than what ends up putting a stop to all of it.
Yeah,
in a minute, we'll
of
get
course.
to
Yeah,
it.
sure.
So he doesn't do his due diligence, really. Mm-hmm. So he's at least a little inept, right, in the work that he's doing. But also, like, the way he uses language, I think, helps characterize him as someone who, disingenuous or not, it's like what do you want to say? But I don't like it. Like, like it's a kind of a frou-frou.
It's like therapy speak,
highfalutin,
I guess.
Therapy speak.
Yeah.
And, like, bordering on, like, weaponizing therapy speak in a way, right? Like,
yes.
all that stuff's coming from a good place. We need a language to use to talk about these kinds of things. But this guy's, like, might be kind of up his own ass with using that language.
And we'll see Bobby picks up on it too. He starts doing it too. And I see this all the time now, to bring it to modern day, where my wife and I love watching, like, shitty dating shows and stuff. And as soon as I see a guy speaking like that, I know he's going to be the most toxic guy of the season. And it's the case every single time, where he presents as this, like, oh, I'm in touch with my feelings, and very flowery kind of language like that, and then they always end up being the biggest shitbags that you'll see.
I don't know how to, like, unpack all this, but I am interested in, like, the way that we use language is so crucially important. And if you're, like, adopting a kind of unnatural, learned way of talking about things, like, what's going on,
I guess it's just intention, because it depends how you're trying to use it. If you're trying to use it to actually be a good person, or if you're trying to use it to hide behind it to be able to get away with some ulterior motive or something like that.
I don't know. The show doesn't really play this up or anything, but one thing that's probably going on here, or could be going on here, is it's like by using language in that way, he's positioning himself as above this hollering redneck. Like, well, I'm the calm one who can articulate himself in language that I have found in scholarly books or something,
Right. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
And you're just like the shouting, dangerous animal, So it's a little bit of maybe like establishing a kind of intellectual supremacy or something too. Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, that's a good observation. And you know what? As we're talking about it now, I am starting to dislike Anthony Page more than I did because going into it, I was like a bit of a defender. But you are right.
Nah, fuck this guy.
Where I mean, this podcast is officially an anti-Anthony Page podcast. And you're right. Not only with he's posturing himself as being this just better person in this way, but he actually is more dangerous because, like you said, spoiler, he doesn't do his due diligence, and he almost could have split this family apart that should not have been split apart. Yeah. And I think it shows, too, that you can have good intentions, but you could also do bad things with those good intentions.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's we don't got to villainize him too hard. I mean, he's caught up in whatever he's caught up in. We're all living in these false realities that crash into each other and cause problems.
Yeah.
I do love I have not yet begun to project my anger. And then he does, right? Things go on a little bit longer, and Hank really loses it. And we got to play, right? We got to play the big speech.
Looks it out of there, as I would as well.
Yeah.
Especially if he does genuinely think that this guy is hurting his family. You're like, this guy's going to fuck me up, no problem.
You do get those hints of things like, I work. If you're just pushing papers around on a desk, that's not real work. And it's like, I don't want to go down that line of thinking too much, right? Like, some of this work needs to be done is good.
Yeah.
And then the tax dollars thing, and you're like, I don't know, maybe tax dollars can be put to good use.
I think overall CPS is a good thing, Hank. I don't know.
Yeah, it might be. I don't know. Well, I'll tell you, it wasn't CPS, but this episode did make me think of a time when some gossipy person, it was a lady, I don't want to be sexist, but it was a woman, some gossip called the cops on me.
Oh my goodness.
I was at a laundromat because we lived in a cabin with no washer dryer just outside of town.
Mm-hmm.
So me and Felix is maybe 8. We're at the laundromat washing some clothes, and we're just sitting there. You know, we got nothing to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're hanging out, and I think maybe we had a little disagreement.
Uh-huh.
I was wondering if how do I go in it? Because there is, I'll get into it later. I would yell at Felix. You know, it's a bummer to me. We can talk about it a little bit.
This being in your past life.
Yeah, anymore I don't do it at all. But anyway, so I don't know what all had gone on with us earlier in the morning, but we might have been a little like down, like our spirits might have been a little down. We might have been not interacting. You know, we've always been buddies and hung out a lot together. He's really a homebody kind of a kid who spent a lot of time with his parents, and especially me to some degree. So I don't know. I didn't think anything of it. I don't know. We sat there, waited for the clothes to be done, and went home. And then later that day, there's a knock on the door at the cabin, which is rare. And it's a sheriff's deputy.
Wow.
And I don't know what to do. I don't interact with cops, you know?
Right.
I hear the internet telling me, well, don't invite him in because then they can plant drugs and you have to go to prison. I don't know what kind of weird paranoid thought crosses my mind. So I joined him out on the front porch. And he's like, well, we received a call from someone who was concerned that maybe your son was, and I don't know how he phrased it right, but something may have been going on with your son. We just needed to come and do a check to see how things are going. And I'm like, really?
Yeah, wow.
He's all right.
Yeah.
Felix, come here. And Felix comes to the screen door. The guy gave me the impression that he was like, look, some busybody.
I don't want to be here, but I have to. This is my job.
I got to check this off the list of bullshit today. But, I mean, he wasn't that dismissive. He was pretty professional about it. He was like, we received a call. We had to follow up on it. But yeah, that struck me as you're just living your life in public and people see you. Mm-hmm. She got my your
plates,
my plates. Yeah. Got my license plate in order to hand that over to get me identified so they could track down where we live so they could come check on us. And I'm like, good Lord.
Well, so you said to him, look, I work for a living, all right?
I work for a living. Yeah, I don't know. It was a weird feeling. Being like, oh man, people are out there judging and thinking things about me.
I mean, it's a good thing, right? That people are looking out for kids.
Yeah. Real quick, I mean, it's important for us the CPS guy then goes and interviews others.
Yes.
We spend the most time with Dale.
This is kind of a way for us to meet the other characters too and kind of learn more about them. This is where we meet Nancy and John Redcorn and Joseph.
That's the big one, right? Once again, Bill, an afterthought here. I don't think he even talks to Bill, right?
I don't think so.
I want to talk about the Gribbles, but the other one is he goes to Boomhauer, and Boomhauer starts doing his, redneck ramble.
Yeah.
About a dog he is barking too much, and he keeps calling about the dang old dog.
I called you, he's going on about it.
Yeah.
A part of that rant is inspired by a rant that Mike Judge got, because he voices Boomhauer as well as Hank. Mm-hmm. He heard this voice message that was forwarded to him, somebody calling in complaining about Beavis and Butthead on the air. So I have a clip of him kind of talking about this on a talk show.
Oh, good.
This guy, his message started out, he goes, I've been calling y'all for better than a month now, grab about y'all every time that dang old Porky's butthole come on.
He thought Beavis and Butthead was called Porky's Butthole. So that's where he got the inspiration for Boomhauer. So here we have Boomhauer's I've been calling y'all for better part of a month. That dog keep barking there, and that computer can't stop no dog. He's just going on. And the thing with Boomhauer is it's the same joke every single time. And I laugh every single time. It's always he says something crazy, and then they always just find new and inventive ways for the characters to interact with him about it, where, I mean, we'll see it throughout the show, but I'm just always delighted whenever Boomhauer has anything to say. And coincidentally, he does seem to be the most intelligent one of the group. There are moments of clarity from him that are very profound.
Yeah. We didn't play it or talk about it, but earlier he did something about what was wrong with the truck, you know. It's like, well, the dang old and he does that a little bit, and then Hank, you know, I think the joke is like, well, nobody can understand what he's even saying, but then Hank says, I wish it were that easy, Boomhauer.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Where as the viewer, you're like, what the fuck? But then the characters always have these like funny ways. Or in a future episode, like they're in a cave and he's yelling in and he says all this stuff. He rants forever. Like, I can't hear you. It must be the echo or something like that. Or I can't understand you. It's just like stupid stuff like that. It's so funny to me. It kind of like, I don't want to say it's absurdist humor, but it's like in that vein where they always inject that with that character. It's just such a delight. I love Boomhauer.
I'm really interested in Bill and can't wait for him to get some more time.
Right.
And Dale too. And I do really like the scene where this, tell me his name again.
Anthony Page.
Anthony Page, CPS guy. Do we need his name?
No, we don't need it.
But when he's talking to Dale and we meet Dale's hot wife, Nancy, who is leaving for migraine treatment.
Way out of his league, obviously.
Yeah. Which I love that they're, from in my memory, their relationship, and she's having an affair with John Redcorn, but Nancy cares about Dale. And
I mean,
you know,
to really jump ahead many seasons, they do end up ending their relationship with John Redcorn, and her and Dale do become monogamous at a certain point. So it is a real relationship. It's just a complicated relationship, I guess.
Yeah. One thing I have my eye on is I think I might like Nancy a lot. I'd be curious to follow that and see.
We learned she does support Dale, like financially. Like he does have his own business as an exterminator. I don't know if they even touch on that in this episode.
I don't think so.
But we learn like he basically operates at a loss. If anything, he breaks even.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so here she's off to get her treatment with John Redcorn. Dale, to me, he sounds a little more like suspicious. And he's like, you've been getting those treatments for 12 years.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that's really just to convey to us, the viewer, of how long. Because you're right. I think that is kind of uncharacteristic of him to kind of suspect something. Because normally it's right in front of him and he does not notice a thing.
He is so delightfully oblivious about it. It's such a fun running gag for me.
Yes.
But so we see John Redcorn. He's Native American. And we find out that she's been seeing this dude for 12 years. And like the way that she hops in his Jeep or whatever with music playing, like it's pretty easy to think that it's not really about migraine treatments. And then back in the Gribble house, here comes Joseph. And he comes around, like he comes through the door and he looks like John Redcorn.
Yeah, he looks like John Redcorn.
So like obviously if you know the show, you know that whole bit. Like you know this story, this gag. But thinking about it as if you're a new viewer,
that's got to be something.
I guess you don't miss it. You know what I mean? Like you get it. You get what they're doing, but they also don't, it seems to me, they don't get super obvious with it, right? Like the punchline is just the kid walks in the room and you look at him.
Right.
And you see what he looks like, and then you connect the dots that were just set up for you and you get what is going on, and it's funny, but they don't, like that's I'm going to say subtler joke than you might be used to in television comedy. And I wonder if that kind of thing is why them dingling kids thought that the show wasn't funny.
Right. Because that's the thing, you know, Anthony Page isn't like, huh? Or anything like that.
Right,
you know, like
right.
Joseph comes, because Dale calls him into the room because they're talking about Bobby if Hank hits him. And he's like, no, you know, Dale says no, calls Joseph in. And Joseph's like, no, you know, I never seen him hurt him or anything like that. You know, so they just continue on with the scene. It's a very subtle thing, like you said.
Seems to me, yeah. And I gotta think that contributes to people thinking, like the humor can be low key, right?
Right.
Some of it's easier to notice, like Boomhauer's way of talking is just funny, you know?
Yeah.
But some of the jokes are this more like low key. We're not gonna like scream in your face what we're up to.
Yeah, and I'm realizing now, you know, I really doubt the first time I saw this show was pilot. I'm sure I'd seen other episodes and then eventually saw pilot. So like, I really wish I could have seen this reveal, like, or remember this reveal, or seeing it for the first time. That has to be really exciting because, you know, for us, we know it's coming,
right?
But to see that for the first time, I would be interested to hear somebody's experience with that.
It really wouldn't surprise me if I watched this the night it aired and didn't get it. You know, I don't know.
That's interesting. Did they adopt him or something?
Yeah, like I don't get shit. They're like, well, that's his wife and that's his son. Like I wouldn't even thought about, well, oh, she might be, that might be an affair. Like, it wouldn't have crossed my
I
mind.
should say Nancy. I don't know that we see it here, but we learn she's a weather girl or meteorologist. So she's attractive for somebody in that role. And John Redcorn is hot too. He's like jacked.
Yeah.
He's very handsome. So they're like this.
He's a hunk.
Yeah, exactly. So they're this power couple, while Dale is this
kind of scrawny.
Yeah, scrawny, beer belly, the weirdo, I guess.
Yeah, like he's skinny fat, right? That's what you.
Yeah. I'm delighted because I'm becoming Dale a little bit as I don't really drink beers, but if I don't start doing something now, I think I'll become a Dale with that little belly. And my wife Hannah pointed out too how all these characters have their shirts tucked in, but it's unflattering for all of them.
Yeah.
Because they all have a little bit of a gut. I mean, here in one of the scenes when Hank is in his truck or something like that, like you really see he has a bit of a belly.
Yeah.
So like if they wore looser clothing, it would flatter their bodies a lot more, but they don't. They show it. Like they show what they got.
In my experience, that's how these guys are living.
They're proud. Yeah, proud of it. Yeah. Good for them.
But I do like that Dale's like, when he asks, does Hank hit his kid? Dale's like, no. Like, I like that everybody is kind of decent at their core, right? Not that Dale would have any reason to like lie or anything.
Sometimes he's shitty, but yeah, you're right. We'll see in future episodes he does fuck Hank over and lie to him and all this stuff. But yeah, no, here they're all very, they're straightforward, or at least Dale is straightforward about it.
And I really like when he's done talking to this guy.
Now you can just move along now.
There's something I really like about that kind of attitude of Dale's.
Yeah.
I love that he's a wimp and a coward, but has he plays tough sometimes, right? Like, again, this is something I want to keep track of as the show goes along. But one reason why I'm so interested in Dale and excited to watch him is I think that he might be like super complex and
he is.
There's a lot to notice and think through about what's going on with him. For one thing, he just lives in like a fantasy world, right?
Yeah, he really
which I
does.
really identify with. My whole life is just one big fucking fantasy.
Yeah, I love Dale. He's one of my favorite cartoon characters of all time.
All right, well, the way this goes is, well, first of all, Bobby and Joseph are joking around about how the CPS guy was asking if Hank abuses Bobby, and they're like, well, of course he doesn't. But then they do some impressions.
Yeah, so we have Joseph and Bobby outside. Presumably, Anthony was talking to other neighbors, and then as they're joking around, he walks past, and they're on the other side of a fence, and he thinks it's Hank
which is
talking.
silly, but
ridiculous.
But, the impression's so fun. We got to play that too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so fun.
But he's all I got.
He's all I got. Yeah.
And I love the visual. Like Bobby really like puffs up to like do this impression.
I love that he cracks up Joseph too. Like there's something, again, grounded, naturalistic about the way who they are, how people interact sometimes in this show, right? And that's one of them, right? Like, how do kids hang out? They're throwing pebbles into the tailpipe of the truck.
Yes.
And just doing goofy voices and making each other laugh, having fun. I really like that. Well, so that gives the guy reason to think that something serious is going on, and Hank needs to be careful not to add any more fuel to this fire. He can't be yelling at Bobby anymore, and Bobby takes advantage of that. He can do anything he wants, and Hank is not allowed to get too mad because now CPS is watching, and the whole town is watching.
Yeah, they're sniffing around.
Pretty quickly, the supervisor at the CPS asks our guy, Anthony Page, or whatever his name was, well, did you ask the Little League coach if Bobby did get hit by a baseball?
Yeah, like, did you confirm that story? And it turns out
he had not.
No. Yeah.
So the case is closed, right?
Right. They're like, okay, this is all just circumstantial shit that you're finding. We can't.
An eyewitness corroborates Hank's story, and you don't actually have anything to go on. Now, he calls the house, the supervisor does. Bobby answers.
Bobby picks up. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, well, tell your daddy that the case is closed. No big, it's over. Mm-hmm. We know he's not doing anything.
The guy tells him, yeah, we're calling off the investigation. Why wouldn't he ask for the parents? Like, why would you tell this to like a 12-year-old kid?
Well, it's kind of an aw shucks
Yeah,
world,
but,
you know, like, well, just tell your daddy.
Yeah, so then Bobby's like, all right, I'll tell him bye, and then they hang up, and then they overhear this. Hank and Peggy, they come in, like, Bobby, who is that? Wrong number. So basically, Bobby knows it's off, but he's using this to his advantage to be able to run rampant in the house, essentially.
He eventually sprays Hank with the water hose, which I'm like, golly, that is way over the top.
He becomes a real piece of shit. Like, he's just terrorizing Hank the whole time. Like, he breaks down their fence, and then people see Hank, and he can't yell at Bobby in front of these other people, so he has to, like, use this therapy language,
Yeah, right. He's doing his best to control his anger and everything. In the case of the fence, I don't have the clip of it, but he's like, please allow my fence to be a fence.
To continue being a fence or whatever he says. Yeah, exactly. So he's trying to play it cool because there's people like, oh, that's the guy who hits his kid.
Yeah. And here's a big one, though, is Hank's working on the garage door, which his truck ran into when Dale released the brake earlier.
Cut the brakes. Yeah.
And Bobby's like, hey, watch this, to Joseph, and starts messing with Hank.
Yeah, they're really, again, the best way I could say is terrorizing him.
Yeah.
In a way that really just makes you feel bad for Hank. And really, Bobby, I don't know if he's ever this bad again, intentionally bad in the show.
I wonder. He is a piece of shit here.
Yeah, he really is. But at some point, and I have to wonder why, the CPS supervisor, he comes to tell Peggy and Hank in person that it's closed, and I'm like, maybe he just felt bad, like wrong about just telling the kid that. Maybe he's like, well, I should go talk to them about this and apologize to them or something.
He might even need a signature or something. They don't account for it, but he might need to like officially close the case,
right?
In some way. Here's Bobby, by the way, later in life.
I was a piece of shit.
He really was. Like, I can't. He's almost out of character here, and we'll get more into this as the episode wraps up. What happens is the supervisor. It's kind of weird. The supervisor comes, I think, while they're spraying Hank with the hose, but he goes and knocks on because they're out in the front yard. He knocks on the door. Peggy answers the door, even though Hank and them are right over there spraying.
Yeah.
And he tells her, the investigation's been off for like a week now, as Hank's getting literally abused by his kid. And so that to me is weird. Like, he didn't stop what was happening or anything. I guess, I don't know, whatever. But so the point
He's
is,
like embarrassed for Hank.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe that's it. And Hank, I guess, doesn't realize that the guy came up. But
yeah,
we then cut to Bobby in his room,
which, by the way, how about that cut? Right? Like, what is the sequence of events here? Bobby's out in the yard fucking with his dad. CPS guy comes by. Peggy knows the truth now. Next thing you know, Bobby's in his room.
Yeah, why wouldn't she just walk up and say, like, why wouldn't she stop Bobby? Bobby, why are you spraying your dad with a hose? Maybe she thought they were playing or something. But Hank's reaction is clearly like of a distraught. Yeah, he's not happy about it.
She's like, I'm going to let that play out, she said.
I'll just wait till they're done. So, yeah, Peggy knows. She goes in to Bobby's room. I think you have a clip for the sound effects he's making.
I do. I like this. I like our look at Bobby's creative streak and the fact that he wants to be a comedian. Ultimately, it's prop comedy, right?
That's what it's. Yeah,
that's kind of his recurring thing. But
yes.
Here it's say, and Dad can't say boo about it. So even like his big life plans are built on the scam he's running.
He's building a future off of this white lie, I guess.
But yeah, so Peggy's like, listen, dude came by and said that the case has been closed for 2 weeks or however long it's been, a week. And I love there's a pause. I wish I had the clip of this maybe, but there's a pause and then Bobby goes, please don't tell Dad.
Instantly knows he's fucking cooked. He's in trouble.
Then he explains that he likes this arrangement where Hank can't yell. And he says, well, here's why he explains to Peggy.
But I like him better this way.
How come?
I can make him love me even when I screw up.
I can make him love me even when I screw up.
Which is very sweet, and I understand the sentiment.
Sad.
Yeah, for real, it really is. But then he wasn't screwing up. No, he was fucking like breaking the fence on purpose. He was fucking with his dad to make his friend laugh. Like, it's a completely different thing than they're trying to convey here.
That's true.
I kind of wish maybe that they would have had Bobby just being weird and Hank couldn't say anything about it, as opposed to him like actually breaking shit and fucking around with Hank.
You could even probably get him to, I mean, even doing things like, for example, what if he threw the baseball up on the roof and then as it came down, he treated it like a pitch and hit it and broke a window.
A bathroom window.
I'm just, coming up with ideas here.
Yeah.
But at least then it's not like he's antagonizing Hank on purpose, malevolently.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, that's all he was doing was antagonizing Hank. And I know we're hitting on this a lot, but I really didn't appreciate that until watching it for this podcast of like, he was being a real shithead the whole time. He was this, you can't say, oh, then he'll love me when I screw up. It's like, you weren't screwing up, you were intentionally.
Boy, I mean, that makes me think, how do you read it if you don't know anything? And I don't think there's much, like the music probably cues sentimental.
Yeah.
Like they don't seem to be leading you to think like this is manipulation.
Right.
But based on the facts that you see, you might think Bobby was a Bart Simpson-like manipulator,
Yeah, I think honestly they did that more for comedy, I think. It's just visually more funny. He's breaking the fence. He's lifting the garage door when his dad's trying to do it. He dresses Lady Bird up in Hank's clothes and all this stuff.
Even that was a good one, right? Because it's like, well, he's just having fun.
I could see him actually doing that, like wanting to do that. That one I don't have a problem with. It's just,
even though Hank doesn't like it, it's not like the water hose thing.
Yeah, that one's not. Yeah, just trying to piss his dad off is what it seems like a lot of the other stuff is. But yeah, we do learn that Bobby does feel like a screw up around his dad. He feels like he's not the son maybe that his dad wants him to be. Even though, again, earlier he was doing that impression of Hank where he's like, he's all I got or whatever he does. So like he does know that his dad loves him though.
I was thinking, I mean, taking it at face value, thinking about a kid who of course wants his father's love. But his dad yells at him, and you can start to feel like a disappointment and all that. It does. I didn't think about this while I was watching everything, but as I reflected on it and everything, I did. Like I was saying earlier, I yelled at Felix. I don't know how to deal with my own feelings. And I feel like that's a pretty Hank Hill situation.
Yeah, that's something that they address in the show quite a bit.
So, like Hank in this episode, if I felt flustered or confused by something, it would come out as anger and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even have I don't know. There's kind of nowhere to go with that. But if I'm being honest, thinking about this episode, that's part of how it connects to my life. Is like, I've been Hank yelling, and then you eventually are like, I gotta be better to my son and grow as a person. And so I guess we can get into how Hank tries to do that.
Well, I just want to touch on that point. I think it shows the strength of this show, and that it's reflecting like something in yourself that you've experienced. You're seeing that, so it just to go to the grounded nature of this show, it's dealing with a real issue that people do struggle with. So I think that's really great. But they're able to find so much comedy in it, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's certainly a really admirable quality of this show that they can manage to tell you a story that drives right at the heart of something that I think is probably pretty common.
Right.
Which is like, look, a lot of people struggle to deal with their own feelings and struggle with communication, and that affects other people, and you got to work yourself through that and try to talk it out and get better about all of it. It's like this fucking cartoon is getting at all that.
Yeah, for real. And it's making you laugh the entire time too. Yeah. And not even just from the Hank aspect, like you touched on, but even from the Bobby aspect. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people who feel like, oh, I'm not good enough. I don't know if my, because their dad doesn't express his feelings. Mm-hmm. Then the son feels like, oh, I'm just a screw up. My dad doesn't really, even if his dad does love him, but doesn't know how to express it. You know what I'm saying? So it's touching on a lot.
Let's get into it.
Yeah.
Because, right? Like my old Gambit impression, fucking weirdo child self, I don't know what I've been carrying with me for 30 to 40 years, about my dad's inability to convey. I never felt, it might be pretty similar to the Hills. It's not like I ever thought that he had bad feelings about me.
Right.
It's like as a kid, maybe you just need a little bit more I can't. I don't. Subtle doesn't work.
Yeah,
like, you gotta
subtext
tell
doesn't
me.
work with a little kid. Yeah,
Hug me and tell me you love me and you're proud of me.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, did that never happened. You know, lots of people had way worse dads than me, and it might just be a generational thing. That's an oversimplification, I'm sure, but my dad was born 58, you know, like the tail end of the boomers. And I don't know that they did a whole lot of expressing good feelings, you know, and love.
I mean, I've certainly felt that with my dad too. My dad was born 65, so a little bit younger than your dad. But I mean, my dad would tell me that he loved me and stuff, but there was always, like, my dad wasn't around a lot, I guess. So it's like, for me, I'd always think, oh yeah, growing up, it was great or whatever. But then I have to think like, well, how did that affect me in ways that I don't understand?
Yeah.
I mean, something I think of is this was when I was 18, so I was older at this point, but I was making music with a friend. We made electronic music. I made the music and my friend was the singer. And we put on, his parents owned like this ranch. And we put on like a concert there where we like invited a bunch of people, and my dad was a musician, so I had like big speakers and stuff.
I heard of that. Woodstock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Jimi Hendrix was there, and so we put this concert on, and my dad didn't, like, he knew we were doing it, like he let me take all the equipment, but he didn't show up for any of the music, and then he shows up when we're done to load up all the equipment, and then there's like he might have seen like our last song or something, and doesn't say anything about the show or anything, and he's there with his friend and his friend's son, and he's like, oh yeah, this guy plays drums, you know, you should jam with him sometime. And I'm like, well, I just did this show here, and you don't have anything to say about it. It's just like those little things that make you wonder how much of that you carry with you.
I do wonder. I feel like here recently, I mean, before you came along, like you said earlier, I was like retired on accident from podcasting.
Right.
One reason why is I don't know. I feel like I'm coming to recognize a real lack of self-esteem. And some of that is, you know, I kind of trained myself not to believe that I would follow through on things and stuff like that, right? Like a certain laziness but even that might be built on like childhood stuff, you know. Anyway, so I was going to say that with Bobby, I know he's, you know, kind of a mixed bag in this episode. But going forward, I have I'm under the impression that I kind of admire that Bobby has some like, is gumption the right word? But like, he's got some confidence. He goes for stuff that he wants.
He speaks up about it to his dad, you know?
Yeah, here he tells Peggy.
I guess that's true. Yeah, she's kind of the catalyst for them to have this conversation.
Which, you know, if I had told my mom, she'd be like, well, you can't count on other people to, you know, like, I don't even know. She might go to him and be like, hey, listen, you know, Robert says that he doesn't always feel like you love him. And my dad would be like, they're probably similar to Hank. Like, well, of course I do. But he would never come and talk to me on the porch like Hank's about to do with Bobby.
Right.
But anyway, I was just going to say, like, thinking about putting myself in Bobby's shoes and being like, yeah, I kind of get what it's like to not feel super confident that your dad feels a lot of good feelings about you or has a lot of good thoughts about you or whatever like that. And I think in my case, that might be part of what created a lifelong complex or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
In Bobby's case, I think it's cool that you kind of can't keep that kid down, you know? He's got some spunk.
He's got some moxie.
Yeah. I think that's cool, and I'm looking forward to watching that unfold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, it makes sense, you know, in your case, and I suffer with the exact same thing of like a low self-confidence. I have to wonder if it stems from like when you're a kid, especially when you're shut-ins like you and me, like your family is your whole world, and when you're not given that confidence from them, it's like, how are you supposed to have a confidence out in the world in general? Because you're just so used to not having it, right? So yeah. For me, it literally took doing my podcast and then being told that what I was doing was good by like, not my father figures, of course, but like these people whose like writing I grew up on and stuff. When they tell me, oh, your podcast is great and stuff and all this nice stuff, then I'm like, oh, maybe I am okay. Like these guys are saying it, you know what I mean? Yeah.
It's so funny to hear that. I don't know if we're going on too long about it, but like I listen to Dancing is Forbidden, I think lots of good things about you. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, thanks. Well, that's what I mean. When I listen to your podcast, it's the same thing.
Yeah. It's so funny. I don't know how you feel if I say that to you. You say it to me, and I'm like, I'm skeptical.
You're like, shut up. You're just saying that.
I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, it is funny to think. Well, the impression I have of you wouldn't match that at all. Like that, you would have any reason to like have some self-doubt or anything like that.
Right. Well, that's how I feel about you too. So maybe we should just kiss and get it over with here.
Oh, if only we could. It's good that we like each other. That's helpful.
Yeah, that's always a good way to start a podcast with somebody that you like.
All right. Well, Peggy does go to Hank and says, he thinks you don't always love him. And damn it. No, I don't buy it. Do you? Surely Bobby is a disappointment.
I don't think Bobby's a disappointment. I think absolutely Hank's been disappointed by Bobby.
Yeah. Like when he says, "You make me proud," I'm like, he does?
Something we didn't touch on here is when they're talking to Anthony Page way earlier in the episode. They're talking about Hank's narrow urethra and how they couldn't have more kids.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think then also Dale brings that up when Anthony's over too. He's like, they couldn't have more kids on account of his narrow urethra. So like everybody knows this. So we do see many times going forward in the show how Bobby is like their miracle child. So we don't really know that yet as the viewer. But I think I do buy it, that he is proud of Bob because he's just happy to have a son because there was a time when it seemed like they were not going to have a child.
Right.
So I do get that. Based on what we've seen, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because Bobby just seems like an idiot and like a terror so far. But knowing what I do know about the show to come, I think I buy it.
Because they're just so different. And Hank so often reacts to Bobby in that buoyant right way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe that's just my nonsense where I like want everything to be perfect or something like that. It's like, well, how could you be proud of your son if he ever does anything wrong? Which that's not how I feel about my own son. So it's like just some silly thought I have, I guess.
A thought I have on that is, we know Hank is this open-minded guy. So maybe a part of him knows that, like, look, it takes all types of people, right? Like, just because Bobby's not what he personally wants to be himself, he can still appreciate the qualities that Bobby has, even if those qualities do make him personally uncomfortable, I guess. But I think that's a stretch, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do agree with you. It is a little heavy-handed in its sweetness, but I still appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
It shows, all the different territory that this show can tackle and relatively pull off.
Yeah. And it occurs to me now, I mean, I'm kind of proud of Bobby in that way I was talking about earlier, where he's like, he goes after what he wants and he sticks to who he is.
Right.
Like he's kind of true to himself and stuff a lot of times. So even if, like you said, we don't necessarily see all that in this episode, in composite across the series, there's probably plenty of reason to believe that Hank could, in fact, be proud of Bobby. Because Bobby's a pretty good kid. Ultimately, right?
Right, like we see he doesn't really seem to like baseball all that much, but he still plays it, and it seems like it's really because Hank wants him to.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big plus to Bobby, that like he'd probably rather not be playing, but he still does it anyways without complaining or anything like that.
Well, so after Hank does finally say, they're like, "I love you no matter what you do."
Yeah.
They kind of do a little, like they break the tension by playing a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Hank does some playful, like socking Bobby in the arm kind of thing.
Yeah, some play fighting,
Yeah, and then a bus is going by, and Anthony Page is on the bus leaving town, I think.
Yeah.
And sees that, and he's like, "I knew it. Did you see him? He's punching him," or something like that to this good old boy on the bus. And the good old boy calls him a twig boy.
Yeah, it's just like, "Shut up, twig boy," or whatever he says. Yeah. Interesting to me that a bus like that is going through their back alley.
Yeah, why would that be?
Why? That's a very cartoony TV show thing, but it's still a funny end there where Anthony Page presumably going back to LA. What is the good old boy doing going to LA? I don't know. Maybe he's getting off before then or something.
Maybe there's another stop.
But it's funny that he leaves thinking that he was in the right. That look at he's beating him right there. I called it, so kind of a fun. But yeah, and again, we do see Anthony Page. I'm seeing here, I believe, in a speaking role in season 2, but he's playing what it's still him, but it's kind of like he doesn't have any recollection of past events. It's like a different kind of thing, yeah. So that is the pilot episode of King of the Hill. But before we go, we got ourselves a quiz bowl here. We have
oh man,
some questions for each other. So one of the things I'm most excited about to do this podcast, and I don't know how much justice I did it today, but is to do these very fun voices and accents from King of the Hill. So my question for you: who does the very first Hank Hill impression ever?
Oh, well, it's... Now I kind of want to... Maybe, are you tricking me? Because I'm trying to think of if any of like the gossiping people act out. But my answer is Bobby.
Get out of my house, my boy ain't much, but he's all I got.
I assume it's Bobby, and I guess, I said Hank Hill, I guess that is true. Obviously, I'm sure there were people doing Mr. Anderson impressions before King of the Hill was a thing, but that doesn't...
you mean like first in the world?
I would think, right? Unless somebody heard them making the show and then did the voice too to be Hank Hill.
You got the commercials running, right? So people
True.
hear Hank Hill before the pilot airs.
Well, the first impression in the episode, then you're correct. It is Bobby Hill, Hank's son. And then Joseph does one after that. He is the second impersonator. Very good.
I got a question. When they're drinking beer in the first scene, only one of them has their can of beer in a koozie.
Oh, shit. Oh, I'm going to say... That's a good question. Oh, my God. That's the kind of question I should have came up with. I'm going to go with Dale.
Nope.
Oh, who is it?
I don't have a soundbite for it. It's Boomhauer.
Dang it. Oh, that's a good question, dude.
Oh, follow-up.
Yes.
Hank goes to get new cans for everybody, right? Like, who's ready?
Yeah.
Who does not get another can of beer?
Is it Bill?
No, it's Dale.
I'm just throwing darts at this thing. I'm just blindfolded throwing darts.
That one I better note. Pretty sure. That one's one I thought of on the spot. I didn't double check.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Dale doesn't get a new beer, and then he brings up Seinfeld.
Okay, well, that is the caliber of question I will have for you next time. But I guess just some closing thoughts on the pilot episode. All I'll say is, growing up, I wasn't crazy about this one for reasons I already outlined, but watching it back now, I think it's a very, very good pilot. I think it's very solid. Like we touched on, they have a lot of these characters very well established, a lot of aspects of the show established. We weren't quite in the alley yet. We'll see that to come, but we did have the Alamo beer. The propane was mentioned. We didn't go to Strickland, but they did bring up...
Even and propane accessories.
And propane, yes. Not just propane, but also propane accessories.
Right there in the pilot.
It's such a fleshed out world from episode 1. I mean, what a shame it would have been if this didn't get picked up, right? If they just had this... Like, if I just saw this pilot, I would have been so heartbroken if it never got more.
Yeah, clearly rich with possibilities.
I think the framing device of interviewing some of the neighbors is good. It's a great way to introduce us. Just that intro shot of the panning across Arlen to get down, almost Forrest Gump-like in a way, get down to see the guys is fantastic. And I mean, anybody could hear we were laughing basically during every single clip. Like, it's just hilarious. For my rating on this one, because we do want to rate these in a fun way, I'm going to give this one 4 wrist braces out of 5. Rob, I'd love to hear what you thought about pilot.
One thing about talking about us laughing, I'm interested in the combination of what they're saying can be funny, and then of course how they're saying it, the voices. I don't know, like you kind of can't resist talking like the characters. I can't resist laughing just at the voices of the characters and the way they talk. And then it's just really cool that can go on. Plus a show that's working on that, like if you want to call it surface level, can also be telling, pretty human, like we said, grounded stories. That's one like kind of specific way that I think that the show immediately establishes itself as great. And there's a lot here that makes me excited to keep watching so I can spend more time with these characters and the voices, of course, and then just see all the different ways that we explore what life is like for these folks. I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5 black eyes.
I like that. Well, Rob, thanks for doing this with me. Let me tell you real quick. I interviewed David Cross yesterday.
Oh, you did?
Yes, and then I had, which he comes on, he shows up in my favorite King of the Hill episode, and I did ask him about that. So we can talk about that in years when we get to that one. But I had a nightmare afterwards that I was supposed to record this with you at the same time, and I didn't know. I accidentally double booked it.
Oh.
And in the nightmare, you didn't even reach out. Like, you didn't even say, hey, where are you or anything. And so I was trying to get in contact with you, and I never heard from you again. So I'm just glad that didn't happen, and I'm glad that we did get to record this.
Me too.
Because it was very fun.
Listen, talking about King of the Hill with you for hours...
Literally.
Yeah. Is better than not doing that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, a lot of fun, of course. Thank you to anybody listening in here. You could find us at yeppodcast.com.
Yep.
Rob, I believe next time we'll be talking about Season 1, Episode 2's Square Peg.
What? Sexual education? Where'd you get this?
I told you, it's school.
Oh, I thought we didn't have to worry about this until 9th grade health class.
Nuh-uh. Principal wants to teach us a unit from some course they made up in Washington, D.C.
Washington? Bobby, go to your room.
That's one that I covered for a podcast in the past, so I paid a little bit extra attention to it. I fucking love it.
It's a classic. It's like they're coming out the
so
gate.
funny.
Episode 2. I wouldn't consider Pilot like a top tier King of the Hill episode. It's a good episode.
Yeah.
But Square Peg is like easily one of the best King of the Hill episodes.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait.
I know. That's going to be so fun. A Peggy-centric episode. I'm excited for it.
Yep.
Yep.